What's up guys, it's your boy Serar. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is part 2 of the bass fishing color selection. If you guys have not watched part 1, I suggest that you go back and watch that before you start this video, as it kind of gives you a baseline for the ideas this video is talking about. I will leave a link to that video down in the description below for you. In the first color selection video, we really discussed more of color patterns that you want to find. What type of thing are you trying to mimic? Are you going to try and mimic a bluegill, a baitfish, a crawdad, maybe a trout, or a baby bird? Now that you understand how to identify the specific color patterns, now we're going to talk about how to pick the specific color out of that range of colors to use on any given day. In this video, we're going to focus on 2 specific factors that really contribute to the color that you're going to pick. The first factor is going to be weather. Is the sun shining, clear skies, or is it cloudy and rainy and more dark conditions? And the second is going to be water clarity. Is the water clear, or is the water dirty and muddy, or is it kind of just a middle ground, that gin water as they call it? So first, I'm going to talk about weather. So let's look at that clear sunny day. When it's sunny outside and the weather's clear, you really want to focus on colors that are either more translucent, so that light's going through it, or you want to be focused on baits that are very reflective and reflect that sunlight. These types of colors really utilize the sun and the sunlight either bouncing off of it or going through it to really make it stand out to the fish. Now, if the weather is a bit darker, it's cloudy outside, maybe it's raining, this is going to be when you want to pick out those more solid colors. Those colors that don't let sunlight go through it. Or maybe colors that are a bit brighter, because unfortunately sunlight is not going to play a factor in the colors that you choose, so you're going to have to choose colors that all on their own with no light are still going to be visible to the fish. Now let's take that knowledge of patterns, and now let's look at water clarity. If the water that you're fishing is clear, you're going to want to fish those more natural colors. The fish are going to have a much easier time seeing the bait, so clear water is where those colors really count. You want it to look real. So something that looks a lot more like an actual fish pattern is going to do a lot better in that clear water. Translucent colors also work really well in clear water, just because of when it's sunny, it is really gonna let that sunlight go through. And on the flip side, in very muddy water, you're gonna want to look for those darker baits or those more bold baits that are gonna stand out. So a lot of times black and blues work really well in muddy water because there's no sunlight to be had, so it is just an extremely boldly dark color. Or something like a pure chartreuse is going to really get shown because it is absolutely bold and it's not letting any other sunlight get through to it. It's not translucent, it is bold all on its own. Let me give you guys a quick little example with a couple baits that I have here. I have a couple of square bill crankbaits. Hopefully it zooms in on the crankbaits, but I have a couple of square bill crankbaits. The one in this hand right here, this is a much more natural bait. It looks a lot like a typical bluegill bait does. It's very much natural tones. It is fairly translucent. I know the camera is not probably going to catch that very well, but it is a very translucent bait. It's got a lot more natural colors. They're not very bright and vibrant or poppy, but it does look very natural. It looks like what a genuine bluegill would look like. As opposed to this bait right here, this is a very bright bait. This is a chartreuse bait. So it's going to be standing out much better in those low light conditions or in those muddy water conditions. Fish are going to see that all on its own. Don't get me wrong. This will still be reflective. This will still be very reflective in the sunlight. But If I were going out with just these two baits, I would fish the natural one when there's a good amount of sunlight and I have clearer water. I might even fish this when it's cloudy and I have clearer water. This is a better clear water bait. If I had more muddy water and maybe some lower light conditions, then I'm going to be pulling out this bait. So then this would be clear water bait, muddy water bait. Let me give you one more example with some bigger baits. Let's look at these two baits. Very different colors, but these are the exact same bait, exact same manufacturer, exact same size, just different colors. This bait is much more natural in my opinion. It's a much more natural colored bait. It looks like a stock trout that I would find in any of my local ponds. But let's not hit that. But the thing about this bait is it is not at all translucent. There is nothing going through here. It is a solid color all the way through. Now let's look at this bait on the other hand. This bait is a much darker bait and it looks a lot bolder. So you would think that this is a much more muddy water type of bait, low light condition type of bait. But that's actually not true. And I know you're not going to be able to tell. Let me see if I can throw a light on this bait really quick. Unfortunately, I can't get a very good look on the camera for this bait. But when you put sunlight to this bait, this whole back half, where it looks like a lighter red color, actually is extremely translucent. And that red line just gets absolutely accentuated when you get light through it. So even though this bait looks like it has more bold colors to the naked eye, it's a very translucent bait and it's going to let that sunlight go through it a lot better. And it's going to give it a whole different look in those clear water situations. So honestly, this bait, because of how translucent it is something I would throw in clear water versus this bait, even though it's more natural colors. Now I know that it's a fair amount of information and there's a lot of different factors that go into, well, what kind of bait should I throw? What kind of color should I throw? So I'm going to put up a chart up on the screen right now. Now, this chart is something I came across a couple years ago, and it honestly does a really good job kind of depicting these two factors and just understanding what types of colors are going to work in each of the four situations. That being clear skies with clear water, cloudy skies with clear water, clear skies with dirty water, and cloudy skies with dirty water. So that color chart gives you a pretty good idea of what kind of colors you want to be using in each situation. And it's really going to kind of help you once you pick the exact color pattern that you're trying to mimic to choose the type of color that you want to use. So please use that chart as reference. Screenshot it in the video if you need to. It's really going to help you hone in on the specific colors for any given day, depending on the situation, the lake, the weather, no matter what it is. So that is going to conclude our two-part series on color selection for bass fishing. If you guys have any other specific questions or comments for me, please drop them down in the comments down below. Like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content. And I will see all you guys in the next one. Peace out.